Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen on Capitol Hill this week, highlighting concerns about commercial real estate. She's set to face the Senate Banking Committee this morning, joining us now in the hearing, as well as the congressional fight over the border, international aid funding, and maybe a couple other things, Senator. Tim Scott, lead Republican on the Banking Committee. What is today, Thursday, Senator? Good morning. Is Tuesday, you got anything going on in South Carolina? Is that coming up?
You know, our election primary in South Carolina is February 24th, so we've got a couple more weeks before we get there. Certainly, it's a hot time throughout South Carolina, even though it's the middle of February.
You obviously have your finger on the pulse of that. It's not even close, I don't think.
Not even close, no. No, it's not really. To tell you the truth, bottom line, my prediction is about a 25-point spread between Nikki Haley and President Trump. The reasons are very clear. The most important issue facing Americans today, according to Americans, is the border. Fixing the border means building the wall. If you're not talking about building the wall, you're actually not talking about securing the border. That's part of the challenge with the border bill that we just saw fail yesterday. If we're going to be focused on America's priorities, it means listening to what they tell us. They tell us 90% of those conservatives want a wall. That is the greatest and strongest impediment to the challenge that we see today, which is, of course, is 10 million illegal immigrants crossing our border in the last 4 years. That is a devastating number. Joe, listen, we have about 10,000 Americans born in the country every day. In December, we had about 10,000 illegal immigrants coming to the country every day. Those are stunning numbers. Number two, the economy. Without any question, about 2/3 of Americans today do not have about $1,000 in their savings for emergencies. That is not a problem. That is a crisis. As a kid who grew up in poverty, I got to tell you, when your gas is still up 40% and your food's up 20%, your energy's up 20%, none of those numbers are coming down. They're only going to continue to go up. The Biden administration and Bidenomics is devastating paycheck to paycheck earners in this country.
Senator, the former President Trump said there's a lot of good Republicans that would fit the bill for vice president, but then he mentioned two, and you were one of them. Do you know if he's leaning towards you? I know that Kristi Noem was mentioned as well, but has he said anything to you can share with us?
Well, no, Kristi has been a great governor without any question. He has not indicated to me anything whatsoever. He's not inferred anything whatsoever. But what I can tell you is working towards 4 more years of low interest rates, low crime, low inflation is something I'm really interested in doing.
We don't have that much time. And,
Sure.
Republicans said, all right, we don't want to give money to Ukraine and Israel if we can't do the border. Then Mitch McConnell heard them and got a great senator to try to put something together, Senator Langford, who knows the issue. He's been down the border many, many times. So something gets put together that might not have been perfect. We know about, don't let the good be the enemy of the perfect. So put that together, and then Republicans say, no, we don't want that, but we don't want border included with this. Now they're back to considering standalone bills for Israel and Ukraine, which they didn't want to do in the first place. I mean, the average American out there is like, get it together, both sides.
Yeah. No doubt. I'd say that's a poor characterization of what actually happened, though. What happened was the president said he would veto standalone aid for Israel. In the midst of the greatest crisis our ally in the Middle East is facing, the President of the United States and Chuck Schumer both have said DOA for individual assistance for only Israel. Their base will not allow them to deal with the crisis at hand. Therefore, cobbling together more assistance for Ukraine, some assistance for our border was the package they put together. The challenge of the package they put together is it still allowed 5,000 people a day to come to our country. And over a leap year, that's a little over 1.8 million illegal immigrants still coming to our country. That does not sound like securing the southern border. To secure the southern border, you have to first start with a physical impediment, a smart wall that sees below the tunnels, where the tunnels are, and above the wall as well. That was not a part of the conversation. It was not a part of the negotiation, and that's part of the reason why the deal fell apart. And then second, codifying catch and release. 85% of the 10 million by November this year will have been released. 8.5 million illegal immigrants left to run through the country. That is a scary fact for most Americans. And if we're going to have a deal, we better get back to the basics. A physical impediment secures the border, number one. Number two, we certainly need to have the Border Patrol with more resources, more officers, more overtime. That is job number two. Wall, and then taking care of our Border Patrol agents who desperately need the additional assistance.
Senator, you are going to hear about banking stability, and we've had another bit of a little tremor here in the New York area with one of the banks here. I know Secretary Yellen expressed, I wouldn't say concern, but she didn't take a position on raising capital requirements. Going to let what bank regulators decided. Were you satisfied with some of the answers yesterday? What do you want to hear today?
First, I will start off talking about the October 7th attack and why this administration, the Treasury Department, released $6 billion in August and then $10 billion in November before we even get to the conversation around the hundreds of billions of dollars that have come with reducing the sanctions from an oil perspective. But as it relates to bank stability, certainly we've been communicating with OCC. As you said, in the New York area, there are some tremors out there. OCC is the primary regulator of the banking question. We're going to continue to monitor that situation. But what we need to understand, Joe, and you know it well, I mean, you're an expert at this. The bottom line is that capital standards is not what the challenge was with SVB. That was a liquidity issue, not a capital issue. And so when you increase the capital on the sidelines, you reduce the number of entrepreneurs that have access to the loan that may change their future and employ their community. When you do that, you also reduce the number of homeowners that can have their first home, the American dream. You have millennials in high interest rates, high inflation, with more capital on the sidelines because the regulators having little access, the lowest access to a home, 40 years, Joe. 40 years.
Well, we got to go. You have not been, President Trump has not offered you the Veep spot yet.
He has not.
Okay.